Good evening, America. Tonight, we have a very special guest, a legend of cinema, director, actor, and possibly the coolest 95-year-old man on the planet, Clint Eastwood. Clint, great to see you. Jimmy beams with energy. You know, I heard you're still making films, working out, and maybe even making your own coffee in the morning. Is that true? I make coffee. I make films. As for working out, let's just say I can still show the young ones a thing or two. He pauses, and the audience laughs. So Clint, your latest film. Jimmy pauses, as if hesitating. It sparked a lot of discussion. Some say it's your boldest project yet, but others, well, let's say they criticize it for, how should I put it, an old-fashioned take on modern issues. What do you think about that criticism? Criticism? His voice is calm, but there's steel in it. I make films about what I see. About people who live, fight, make mistakes. If someone thinks that's old-fashioned, well, maybe they should step outside and see how real America lives. But, Clint, don't you think modern America has changed? People want to see more. Well, let's say diversity, new voices. Your film, for example, has been criticized for lacking. Jimmy stops, searching for words, a modern approach to racial and gender issues. Are you saying I don't understand America, Jimmy? His tone is calm, but it carries the weight of decades of experience. I was making films before you were even born. I've seen this country change, from wars to protests, from hopes to disappointments. And you know what? People still want one thing, the truth. Not slogans, not trendy words, but the truth. Oh, I don't doubt you know America, Clint. But maybe the younger generation sees that truth differently? He turns to the audience, seeking support. Isn't that right, folks? The audience claps hesitantly, but the tension rises. Clint doesn't take his eyes off Jimmy, and his voice grows quieter, yet more piercing. The younger generation. He pauses. They're entitled to their opinions. But I'm not one to bend to every new trend just to please the crowd. I tell stories the way I see them. If you don't like it, Jimmy, say it straight. Don't hide behind criticism. Clint, I'm just saying that maybe you should listen to those who feel offended by your approach. It's not about censorship, it's about dialogue, right? Clint leans back sharply, his face hardening. Dialogue? He almost whispers, but his words hit like a gunshot. It's not dialogue when you're trying to shut me up while hiding behind buzzwords. You want dialogue, Jimmy? Then let's talk. Why do you think you get to tell me how to tell my stories? The audience freezes. Cameras keep rolling, but operators exchange nervous glances. Jimmy opens his mouth, but doesn't get a chance to respond. Clint continues. I grew up in a world where people said what they thought and weren't afraid of being canceled. I worked construction, played in bars, made films when Hollywood was tougher than it is today. And you know what? I respect people who speak the truth, even if I don't like it. But what you're doing, Jimmy, that's not truth. That's playing to the crowd. Clint, I'm not playing to the crowd. He stumbles. I'm trying to understand your position, but you're making it really difficult. Difficult? Clint gives a faint smile, but there's no warmth in his eyes. Life's difficult, Jimmy. And if you want to understand my position, stop reading Twitter and talk to people outside this studio. The ones who work, pay taxes, raise kids. They'll tell you what America is. The audience erupts in applause, this time like thunder. Jimmy raises a hand to calm the crowd, his smile forced, his voice trembling with barely contained anger. All right, Clint, let's move on to something else. He tries to change the topic, but his words sound unconvincing. Tell us about your new project. What inspired you? Clint doesn't answer right away. He looks at Jimmy, as if weighing whether to continue. Then he slowly stands from his chair, adjusts his jacket, and turns to the audience. You know, I came here to talk about films. But if all you want is to put on a circus, I'm done. He pauses, looking straight at Jimmy. And, Jimmy, next time you want to talk about America, figure out what you're talking about first. With that, Clint Eastwood turns and walks off the stage. The audience explodes, some clap, some shout words of support, while others sit in stunned silence. Jimmy is left alone, his face burning, the spotlights feeling too bright. He forces a smile and says, "Well, that was unexpected." We'll be right back after the break. What Clint Eastwood did next will make you think, so don't switch the channel. Mr. Eastwood, why did you walk off the stage? Was it staged or a real fight? Clint, what do you think about the accusations of being old-fashioned? Are you planning to sue the Kimmel show? Mr. Eastwood, I'm from the Los Angeles Times. My name is Elijah Woods. He swallows, as if gathering courage. This isn't about the fight. I want to ask, why do you insist on your truth? In a world where everyone wants to please everyone, why do you choose to be yourself? A barely noticeable smile touches Clint's lips. He lets go of the car door and takes a step toward the crowd. The journalists freeze, expecting an outburst or another sharp remark. But Clint speaks quietly, his voice rasping like an old engine. Good question, Elijah. He pauses, scanning the crowd. I'll answer, but not for your headlines. For those who still listen, who still think. He points to the dark street behind them, where the city lights flicker. Out there, in the real world, people are tired of lies. Tired of being told what to think, what to love, what to hate. I don't play those games. And if you want to know what happened in that studio, he nods toward the building. I just said what I think. Now, ask your questions. But be careful, I don't like stupid ones. The journalists erupt with new questions, but Clint raises a hand, and they fall silent. He points to Elijah. You first. Elijah fidgets, but quickly opens his notebook. Your latest film. It's about a war veteran who comes home and can't find his place in the new America. Critics say it ignores modern issues. But I saw something else in it. Pain. Disappointment. Did you make it so? Uncomfortable on purpose? Clint nods, as if sizing up the young man. You watched the film, not Twitter. That's something. The crowd laughs, but Clint continues. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Because life is uncomfortable. That veteran isn't just a character. It's people I've met. People who gave everything for their country, only to come back and hear their values are outdated. I made it to remind people. Their pain is real. And you can't brush it off with trendy words. Elijah nods, scribbling, as Clint turns to the others. Who's next? A woman with bright red lipstick and a tabloid microphone shouts. Is it true you were offended by Jimmy Kimmel's comments about your age? Clint rolls his eyes, but answers calmly. My age? I'm 95, and I can still make a film that'll make you cry or laugh. Jimmy didn't offend me. He just didn't know who he was talking to. Next. The crowd laughs, but the tension doesn't ease. Another journalist, an older man with a gray beard, asks. You mentioned real America. But what is that to you? Many say your America is a past that won't return. Clint pauses for a moment, his fingers brushing the brim of his hat. Real America isn't the past or the future. It's the people who wake up at 5 in the morning to work, who raise kids, pay taxes, believe in fairness. They don't shout on Twitter, but they're out there. And I make films for them. If you think that's the past, you're not seeing what's right in front of you. His answer stirs whispers in the crowd. Elijah raises his hand again, and Clint nods to him. You talked about respect. Elijah hesitates. But how do you respect those who don't respect you? Like those who call you backward or racist because of your films. Clint smiles, this time genuinely. Kid, respect isn't about everyone liking you. It's about standing your ground while listening to others. I don't agree with those who call me backward, but I'm willing to talk to them. Not shout, not cancel, talk. The problem is, most of them don't want to listen. They want me to shut up, and I won't. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the darkness. Loud, sharp, laced with anger. Then why don't you listen to us, Clint? Why do you ignore the young people who want change? Everyone turns. A young woman, about 25, with short blue hair and a phone in her hand, likely recording a video, steps out of the crowd. Her eyes blaze, her voice trembling with emotion. You talk about real America, but you ignore us, those fighting for justice, for equality. Your films glorify the old, but we want the new. Why don't you hear us? The crowd freezes. Journalists step back, giving her space. Clint looks at her, his face unreadable. But in his eyes, something new flickers, not anger, but curiosity. What's your name? He asks calmly. Leila, she replies, lifting her chin. Leila, Clint repeats, as if tasting the name. You think I don't hear you. But I do. And I want you to say more. Not for the cameras, not for Twitter. Right here, to me. What do you want to change? Leila falters. She clearly expected anger or dismissal, not this. Her hands tremble, but she steps closer. I want people like you to stop romanticizing the past. To show people like me in your films, young, different, fighting for a world where no one is discriminated against. Clint nods, not breaking eye contact. All right, Leila, I hear you. Now tell me, have you ever talked to someone who thinks differently? Not online, but in person, with those you call the old world. Leila falls silent, her eyes darting. Well, not really. But I know what they think. Clint smiles, but this time there's a trace of sadness in it. Reading isn't talking. If you want me to hear you, sit down with me. Not here, not for a show. A real conversation. Are you ready? Leila freezes, her phone slowly lowering. Journalists whisper, cameras click, but in that moment, everything stills. Everyone waits for her response. And just then, a new sound pierces the darkness, a loud car horn. A black SUV with tinted windows screeches to a stop nearby, and a man in an expensive suit steps out. His face is tense, his voice cutting through the night air. Clint, that's enough. You've said enough. Get in the car, that's an order. Clint turns to him, his eyes narrowing. An order? Kid, I don't take orders from Hollywood. Who are you? The man steps closer, his voice dropping to a whisper, but audible to all. I'm from the studio's board of directors. And if you don't stop this circus, your next film will never see the light of day. The crowd gasps. Leila raises her phone, Elijah grabs his notebook, and Clint. Clint smiles. A circus, you say? His voice is calm, but it carries a storm. Well, let's see who the real clown is here. He turns back to Leila, ignoring the man in the suit. So Leila, are you with me? Or are you just filming for likes? Everyone freezes, waiting to see what happens next. Clint, I'm serious. Get in the car. Now. Leila, still holding her phone, looks confused. Her eyes dart between Clint, the crowd, and the man in the suit. Elijah, the young reporter, stands nearby, his pen frozen over his notebook. The tension in the air is thick, like Los Angeles smog. Clint slowly turns to the man in the suit. His voice is low, calm, but it carries a force that silences everyone. You think you can threaten me? He pauses, his eyes narrowing. I was making films when your bosses were still in diapers. And I'll keep making them when they're long forgotten. The crowd gasps. Journalists scramble to take notes. Cameras click. The man in the suit turns red, his fists clenching, but he's at a loss for words. Clint turns back to Leila, ignoring him. Leila, I ask you, are you ready for a real conversation? Leila swallows, her fingers trembling on her phone. She glances at the crowd, feeling the weight of their stares. Then she takes a deep breath and lowers her phone. Yes, she says quietly but firmly. I'm ready. The crowd erupts in applause. Elijah smiles, jotting down her words. Even some journalists, who moments ago were chasing a scoop, look impressed. Clint nods, his face softening. Good. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, in Little Tokyo. There's a cafe, the old lighthouse. Be there. And no cameras. He turns to the man in the suit, who's still standing, seething with anger. And you, Clint points at him. If your studio wants to play these games, LL, make my film myself. And trust me, people will see it. The man opens his mouth but doesn't get a chance to respond. Clint turns and walks to his car. The driver, an old friend of Clint's named Frank, opens the door. Before getting in, Clint glances back at Leila. Don't be late, he says with a faint smile. The car drives off, leaving the crowd in chaos. Journalists scatter, typing headlines. Eastwood defies Hollywood. Kimmel show scandal. Leila stands, watching the car disappear, her heart pounding. Elijah approaches her. Are you really going? He asks. She nods, her eyes filled with determination. I have to. The next morning, Los Angeles wakes under a gray sky. The old Lighthouse Cafe in Little Tokyo is a cozy spot with worn wooden tables, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, and the soft hum of old ceiling fans. Clint sits by the window, holding a cup of black coffee. His hat rests on the table, his gaze fixed on the street where pedestrians bustle. Leila enters, dressed in a simple denim jacket and white t-shirt. She looks nervous, but her posture radiates confidence. Clint gestures to the chair across from him. Sit. Coffee or tea? Coffee, she replies, taking a seat. A waitress, an elderly Japanese woman with a warm smile, brings a cup. Leila wraps her hands around it, as if seeking warmth. I thought you wouldn't show, she says, looking at him. I said I'd be here. I keep my word, Clint replies. They sit in silence, listening to the hum of cars outside. Finally, Leila speaks. Why are you doing this? Why agree to talk to me? I was ready to yell at you yesterday. Clint takes a sip of coffee. Because you weren't afraid to say what you think. And you didn't just yell, you wanted to be heard. That's rare. Leila sighs, her fingers tightening around the cup. I don't agree with your films. They seem to say things were better before. But for people like me, young, non-white, fighting for rights, before wasn't better. Clint nods, not interrupting. Tell me, he says, what do you see in this world? What do you want to change? Leila hesitates, then starts talking. She shares her experiences, growing up in a poor neighborhood, facing prejudice because of her appearance, fighting for a place in a world that often ignored her voice. Her words are filled with pain, but also strength. Clint listens, his eyes never leaving her. When she finishes, he's silent for a long time. Then he speaks, his voice quiet but firm. I don't make films to say the past was better. I make them to show people as they are, with their pain, their struggles. Maybe I don't always see the world the way you do, but I want to understand. Leila looks at him, her eyes glistening with tears she holds back. So what now? Will you change your films? Add diversity to please everyone? Clint smiles, this time genuinely. I don't change to please, but I can listen. And maybe my next film. He pauses, looking out the window. Maybe it'll have a story you tell me. Leila gasps, barely believing her ears. Are you serious? I don't joke about work, he replies. They keep talking, cautiously at first, then more freely. Clint shares stories of his youth, his struggles to break into Hollywood, and how he watched America change. Leila talks about her dreams, not just to change the world, but to find a way for people to listen to each other instead of shouting. An hour passes, then another. The waitress brings more coffee, smiling as if sensing something important is happening.